Hello everybody and welcome back to another Logan Blackman Show video. It's another day, another preview. This is our third straight preview video. Obviously we did the Euros predictions a couple weeks ago. We did our Copa America predictions last week. You can check out links to both of those down in the description below. And you can check out how we're doing in the Euros predictions because we are in the second set of games. By the time this video comes out, I think we're going to be in the second, maybe we're creeping in the third set of games. I don't know. So you can see how my predictions are looking comparatively to what the groups are actually shaking out to be. Because it's not starting off the greatest for what I can tell because of the fact that Belgium decided to drop an absolute stinker against Slovakia the other day, which I'm perfectly fine with. Belgium has been pissing me off for years. Why are you ranked so high when you never do anything? So I'm perfectly fine with Belgium losing that game. And if Belgium don't make it to the knockout stage of the Euros, I'm A-okay with that as well. Beef with Belgium. And it has nothing to do with the 2014 World Cup where Belgium beat the United States in extra time. It has nothing to do with that. It's just the fact they are so insanely overrated every freaking year. And now they lost to Slovakia. And what I have been told is the biggest upset in Euros history. And I know by rankings-wise it probably is. I would still say the biggest upset in Euros history belongs to that of England versus Iceland back in 2016 because that game came out of freaking nowhere. Now, in regards to this Copa America, the United States previews and all that stuff, let's hope for nothing too insane here in regards to the United States taking on Bolivia. I think the United States is ranked 11th in the world in regards to the FIFA World Rankings. Bolivia is ranked 85th. So this would be a much bigger upset than Slovakia beating Belgium the other day. This is a game the United States should have relatively no issues with. But as we have learned through Greg Berhalter's tenure as the United States manager, even the easiest ones, we can have some problems. We can have a little bit of problems in these games. And the form leading up to the tournament for the United States has been, kind of suspect. NGL, it's kind of been suspect because, of course, you had that 5-1 loss to Colombia the other week. Horrific game in every single facet. There was no positives to take away from that game whatsoever. But then you rebound against a team in Brazil who played their strongest 11, or at least close to their strongest 11. And Joe Scally, who did not have a great game against Colombia, had himself a fantastic game against Brazil. The United States built up through transition. It was great passing throughout the back line. There was one shot that Pulisic had that if he scored, it might be one of the best goals one of the best team goals the United States has scored, at least in recent memory. Building all the way from the opposite box up all the way up the field to Pulisic taking a strike on net and Allison got a hand on it. It was a fun game, a stark difference to what happened against Colombia. And going into this tournament, that's what the United States needs. And I know a 1-1 game is not necessarily the most fun thing in the world, and it's not a win. It's not a win on paper, but in the feeling around the camp and around the team going into this tournament is a lot different now than it was if the tournament started directly after the Colombia game. That feeling, the morale is up. Let's just put it like that. And this is a team that on paper is probably the strongest team, or at least one of the strongest teams the United States has brought to a major tournament in history. Obviously, there's no Serginho Dest, who we brought up in the Copa America preview as he tore his ACL with PSV. But apart from that, this is an insanely strong squad. You look at the back, you look at the goalies. Obviously, got Matt Turner there, Ethan Horvath, and Sean Johnson, which we brought up in Copa America that I wish Gaga Slonina was in this team, but Greg Berhalter's insisted on bringing Sean Johnson as that third-choice goalie. And after the Colombia game, as we brought up, there were some speculations about Matt Turner's how much of a grasp he had on that number 1 shirt for the United States because his form for Nottingham Forest was fairly non-existent this year. Got benched in the later part of the season, and then you see this game against Colombia, and they lose 5-1. And the game against Brazil, his distribution, which we have always known is not great, was really on display in that early portion of that Brazil game. Just do not play it back to him, please. But if you go a little bit further up the field, you look at the back line, you look at the likes of Joe Scally, who we brought up before against Brazil. His back will be Shaq Moore. Fun one with that one. You got the left backs, Antti Robson, Christopher Lund, who they brought over from Denmark. It was a dual nat from Denmark. Center backs, you obviously got Chris Richards and Tim Ream. Mark McKenzie is there as well. Cameron Carter-Vickers is there. Looking in the midfield, obviously Tyler Adams is there, Johnny Cardoso, and Yunus Musa. Yunus Musa plays the number 6 in that game against Brazil, which was an interesting choice from Berhalter's. Johnny Cardoso played that role in the Colombia game, and he was one of the better players against Colombia. But the main thing around this midfield is Tyler Adams' health. How healthy and how fit is he going into this tournament? That'll be a big factor for how the United States lines up in the midfield sections, because we obviously know the likes of Weston McKennie and Giovanni Reyna will keep their starting spots because they are two of the most important players on this team, and Giovanni Reyna might be, next to Pulisic, the most important player on this national team, given his recent form with the national team. Repeated that's awesome. But Luca De La Torre is also there. Like, there's some depth in this midfield that I really like, and going forward, Josh Sargent is back with the team. He was back at training the other day. The United States technically has 4 strikers. We obviously know that they're going to try and play Haji Wright somewhat on the wing, which is what he did from time to time at Coventry City. And then you got, obviously, Balogun is there. Ricardo Pepi, who started the game against Brazil, on the wings. You've got Timothy Weah, Christian Pulisic, Brendan Aronson is there. Like, this is a very, very strong team. On paper, again, this is one of the strongest teams the United States has ever brought to a major tournament. If Serginho Dest was there, this would be unquestionably the strongest squad the United States could bring to a major tournament, because Shaq Moore does... No offense to Shaq Moore. I mean, I was at the game against Canada where he scored in 20 seconds. Like, I have some love for Shaq Moore on a surface level thing, but he does not belong in this squad. Obviously, that is because of Dest being out. But I'm excited to see what this team can do. I'm very excited. Obviously, we predicted them to finish second in the group. I wouldn't be, like, insanely floored if they won the group. Because remember when we talked about in the Copa America preview video, we said we recorded that before the Brazil game. So my mindset was still on the Colombia game, and there was 0% chance that they could get a result against Uruguay. Maybe they could get a draw, but they wouldn't be able to get a win against them. Which we said I wouldn't be too shocked if it finished 9-6, 3-0 in regards to the standings in the group. But after that Brazil game, I feel a little more confident. I'm not going to sit here and say, like, oh, my confidence is through the roof, and now that I think the United States will go out there and kick the shit out of Uruguay. I'm not saying that, but I think they could be a little bit more competitive than what I initially thought, if that makes any sense. Because Uruguay's a strong team. Very, very strong team. And they'll be taking on Panama in the first round of the group stages. And the United States, as you read by the title, as you probably know by now in general, will be taking on Bolivia, the 85th ranked team in the world. They're coming off a 3-0 loss to Colombia, where they just absolutely beat the brakes off them. Like, the United States may have lost 5-1. They played better against Bolivia, which is what you would expect. It's like, it doesn't sit well knowing that the United States lost by more goals to Colombia than the 85th ranked team in the world, but that's the reality of it, and it was just really easy. It could have been more if they wanted to. Luis Diaz had an insane game for Colombia, which bodes well for Christian Pulisic, because obviously Luis Diaz plays on that left wing, and he was just feeling himself in that game. There were a couple red cards this game as well, which is always exciting to see. James Rodriguez got his 100th cap for the national team, so congratulations to James Rodriguez. And yeah, there's not really a lot to talk about from the Bolivia side of things. I mean, the closest opportunity they had, I think 4 shots on target, I think, in this game, and one of them was a Saucedo free kick. Decent free kick, not gonna lie, just from right outside the box. And then there was a Medina shot, or not shot, he missed it, but there was a cross that came into the box, low-driven ball across the box, and he tried to slide it, and he just missed it. They probably should have scored on that chance, but they didn't. But in that game for Bolivia, I mean, they were just really sloppy. I think that's the main thing you could take away from that game, is just how sloppy they were, which shouldn't be too surprising. I mean, since June of 2023, they've won 2 games, lost 11, and drew 1. They're known for being a tough outfit at home, but on the road, they're fairly, like, it's inevitable that they're going to get beaten. And that's what you're kind of expecting going this tournament. That's why I didn't really think twice about it when we were making our video last week about Bolivia finishing last in this group, potentially finishing with 0 points. I don't really think that's too far outside of the question, but sloppy in the back. They're very susceptible to the press. You look at what Colombia did when they pressured them. Bolivia was very wasteful with the ball. And Colombia, again, this could have been worse. This could have been a worse game, but as we said, ended up being 3-0. Now, some of the key players to look at for Bolivia on this team, like, you look at the back line, they line up in the back 3. Against Colombia, they played more of a 3-1-4-2 or a 3-5-2 formation against the Colombian team. But you look at Joaquin, the captain, sitting there at center back, and Jose Sagredo, who has 54 caps, who has the most outfield caps on the national team going into this tournament. When you look a little bit further up the field, they've got some very, young, exciting prospects in the midfield and the forward areas. You look at a player like Miguel Terceros or Miguelito, who plays over at Santos in Brazil. He's a very young attacker. Could boost up the team a little bit from the attacking areas. And then you got the likes of Ramiro Vaca. If you look at their last 2 games that they've played, he scored both goals, or not both goals, but he scored 2 goals in the last couple of games that Bolivia has won, you can see him playing a little bit deeper. You can see him playing in the attacking three, as he did in the last one they had against Andorra when they won. No, was it 1-0, 2-0, 2-1? What was the score? 1-0 against Andorra. And the other game they won was against Purdue, who, you know, we struggled thinking about them finishing second in the group, which talks about how poor they have been so far in World Cup qualifying. But Vaca, that versatility is big as well. And again, as we keep looking forward, Juame Suelar plays for Barcelona B. That's a very impressive. That's by far. I mean, we got Santos, we got Barcelona B, but still, those are two relatively well-known clubs. Like, those three are going to be the main guys, I would imagine, looking for. We obviously brought up Saucedo earlier with the free kick that he had against Colombia. He was the only one in that game, too, that had more than one shot. He was playing at right wing back or right mid. It kind of depends on how you want to look at their formation, but it was kind of hard to pinpoint where specific things were because of the fact they were so unorganized, I guess you could say. Again, this shouldn't be a game where the United States struggles all too much. And I'm being nice here. And I am well aware that the United States is not necessarily the most convincing team in games that they should be, you know, absolutely beating the brakes off teams. They're not usually like that, especially with Greg Berhalter as manager, but this team is way too talented to struggle in this game. They should be able to do similar-ish things to what Colombia did against them. Obviously, that's rich coming from a guy whose team just lost 5-1 to that said team, but still, I think they can do similar things, especially if they're playing on the transition. If they play, you know, fast, they press really well, I think they could have a lot of success in this game. And if we're looking at the starting 11 for the United States, we're probably going to see them line up in a 4-3-3. Obviously, in a perfect world, I would like to see them line up in a 4-2-3-1 with Giovanni Reyna played up a little bit higher. But in the game against Colombia, in the game against Colombia and the game against Brazil, they lined up in that 4-3-3 formation. In net, though we talked about potentially Matt Turner not having a firm grasp on the number one shirt, he is going to keep the starting job here. Fairly simple stuff here. The back line, Joe Scally at right back. There's some people I've seen that want to see the United States go a little bit experimental, which is what you can afford to do from time to time in games like this. So maybe see like a Tim Weah there, but maybe experimental. You got to be careful what you wish for, because experimental to Greg Berhalter could mean that Shaq Moore lines up at right back in this game. So you got to be careful, but Joe Scally deserves that starting spot on that right side. On left back, Anthony Robinson, Fulham's player of the season. He didn't have the greatest game against Colombia, bounced back a decent amount against Brazil. Fun player, fast player, electric player. He'll be the offensive output from that left side, overlapping runs with Christian Pulisic to push him a little bit more centrally, and that'll be fun. I'm very intrigued to see how that'll work. Again, I keep doing spoiler alerts here, but center back partnership, Tim Ream, Chris Richards, Tim Ream. That's the number one center back partnership for the United States. I like the chemistry between Tim Ream and Robinson there as well. Chris Richards, former FC Dallas product. They're playing this game at AT&T Stadium, so another reason why Shaq Moore may get the start in this game, because he is an FC Dallas product, one of their youth team players. Looking to the midfield, we obviously got Giovanni Reyna, who we brought up before. Weston McKennie will be there. And then that number 6 spot is interesting, because like we said, it all depends on the health of Tyler Adams and the fitness of Tyler Adams. But what we saw in the Brazil game, I think he'll stick with Yunus Musa, because this is a game where you're going to want to be quick on the transition. I think Yunus Musa will be perfect for that. Johnny Cardoso, nothing against him. Nothing against Johnny Cardoso. I thought he played well against Colombia. Thought it was kind of a weird move to sit him out of that game against Brazil, because I thought that'd be a game that, you know, but he'd want to be in. That'd be a game he'd want to participate in, or at least start in, which would be really cool for him. But Yunus Musa, I think, will keep that spot in the midfield. And you look at the front line, the front three, Timothy Weah on the right, picks himself. Christian Pulisic on the left, picks himself. That striker position, because we talked about the transition, I think this would be perfect for Valerian Balogun. I think this would be a game for him to really shine. I think he's had 3 goals and 3 assists in his last 6 United States appearances. Obviously, we saw Ricardo Pepi start, and again, I do think there's going to be times where Haji Wright either plays as a striker or off the wing. If the United States plays in a back 3, I wouldn't be too surprised if they lined up with Pulisic and Haji Wright at striker. It wouldn't shock me all too much, but for this game, I think just lining up with that Pulisic, Balogun, and Timothy Weah starting line, I think would be very, very nice. A lot of speed in this team, and if you want to go like crazy, maybe we do want to throw Tim Weah at right back. Maybe we want to see how that works out, because that has been talked about going into this tournament. We've also heard the likes of Tyler Adams playing at right back, who played there early under Greg Berhalter. You look at Yunus Musa, could maybe play right back as well, but Scally is the main guy there, especially coming off the game that he had against Brazil. But like we've talked about before, this should be a game where the United States doesn't really struggle all too much. No offense to Bolivia. I don't mean to say anything too harsh against Bolivia, but I'm just reading the writing on the wall. At least that's what it seems like at this point. 11 versus 85. This would be the biggest upset in recent memory by a long shot if it happened. But time will tell on that. I do think the United States should be able to come out 3-0 victors. As we talked about, they should be able to do similar-ish things to that of Colombia against this team. 3-0. I think is good score. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like 4-1 or something. I do think the United States wins by 3. I do when he's 2-shot to Bolivia, snuck one past them like later in the game, but time will tell. Time will tell, and I think this should be a good result for the U.S. to get them on the front foot going into this tournament, get the goal difference up, because that Uruguay-Panama game could be interesting. I do think Uruguay will win fairly easily, but maybe it's like a 2-0 game versus the United States 3-0. That goal difference could be big. It could be. You never know. So we'll have to see. But I'm excited for this game. The game is on Sunday, as we brought up before. It is in Arlington, Texas, where the Dallas Cowboys play, which is where the United States and Mexico played the Nation League Final. I was at that game. Awesome game. Tyler Adams obviously had a screamer in that one, so wouldn't be too opposed to him having another one in this game as well, if he's fit. But I don't think they would. Maybe they do, but I don't think this would be a game they push him, like force him into the starting line. But time will tell. We'll have to see. I hope you enjoyed, though. That's all I've got for the preview. I hope you enjoyed. If you didn't, I sincerely apologize. I'll try to be better next time. Make sure to check out the links to all the different social media accounts down in the description below, as well as the links to the last couple videos that we have made in regards to the Copa America and the 2024 Euros. Right now, I've got Scotland and Switzerland in the background. It's 1-1 in the 57th minute, so we'll see how that one finishes up. But I've been Logan Blackman. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys the next time. Peace.